Welcome to Human OS Mind Your Health Rewired, the show that unpacks the hidden systems driving your symptoms and empowers you to heal from the inside out. I'm your host, Dr. Connie Cheung, and after decades of inside the healthcare system and outside of it as a patient, I've learned this, that health isn't something you chase, it's something you remember. And if you're ready to rewire your body, reclaim your power, and rise above the outdated health norms, you're in the right place. Let's get right to it.
Hey everyone, this is Dr. Connie. Welcome to my podcast. This is Human OS Mind Your Health Rewired, and this is your host, Dr. Connie Cheung. Welcome. I hope you're having the best summer yet. I'm doing great and I'm making some headway, having a lot of revelatory thoughts and a lot of downloads on really getting and stepping up into my power and really trusting my intuition and really my gut feeling, and learning to love myself and being home again is the best feeling in the whole wide world. But on the subject of this, I come across so many of this cycle. So I wanted to talk today about breaking the cycle of fear and stepping into your power, because this has come to me this week. I kept running into lots of resistance in the thing that that I want to do the most, but yet I keep getting stuck. And it's almost like a self-sabotage. I've always felt it and I've succumbed to it many times over, but this time I am staying true and I'm staying convicted to not to go back and regress what I've rewired and pushed through, because there is this disintegration anxiety. Everything I've known, the painful self where I used to just be in the pain of not knowing and being the control freak that I am, that's been my surviving mechanism to predict and control everything that I can, and sort of learning to let go and being okay with it and telling my nervous system that I'm not going to die. That's been one of the things. So, I talk a lot about Human OS and decode, rewire, and rise, the whole 3-step process using the EASE methodology within the realm of functional yoga medicine. I really feel like this work is something you've got to do over and over again. And just when you think you landed and you've arrived, there's so much more work to be done. The more you grow, the more you've got to evolve. And so I just want to say welcome back to my podcast. And today we're really going to go deep into the neuroscience behind emotional and physical healing, specifically how your brain reacts when you try to change. Whether you're setting boundaries, changing your habits, or confronting deep-rooted fears, your brain is going to respond in a big way. And understanding this process is the key to moving past it. And that's exactly what we're going to unpack today together. It also, I'll be sharing how we can work through this process together, step by step, like I mentioned, in my Human OS Reset and Decode and Rewire programs. And this isn't a quick fix. It's about commitment, consistency, and taking ownership of your healing journey. And I guarantee you, these programs are what's going to really help you to decode, rewire, and rise at the core. And no matter what you're dealing with in your life or your health, this is the program that's going to get you to that next level. Not just a surface layer program changing a little bit here and there, adding a little supplements and working with a different practitioner. I think that kind of strategy is out the door for me. I think the best way to go is to go deep into the roots of your healing and understand what it entails and be willing to show up for yourself, even though it's painful. So, number one, let's talk about the neuroscience of change, how your amygdala reacts to healing. So, amygdala is your brainstem. At the brainstem of your brain is your primitive brain. That's like the same brain that your birds, your deer, your squirrel operates from, okay? They're very simple. They don't have this ability, our prefrontal cortex, to problem solve and really differentiate and analyze and nitpick those things. We have a primitive brain is highly influenced by your emotions, okay? And I just want to say, when you begin making shifts in your life, whether it's setting new boundaries, confronting fears, or changing old patterns, your amygdala is going to react. And the amygdala is your brain's emotional alarm system, and its primary job is to keep you safe. And it's responsible for your fight or flight response in the autonomic nervous system in the EASE methodology. But here's the catch. The amygdala isn't good at distinguishing between actual threats, like physical danger, and emotional threats, like facing change or saying no to people you love. When you begin making changes, whether it's in your personal life, relationships, or health, the amygdala sees this as a threat to your safety because it's unfamiliar. Simply that. The brain is wired to keep you in what's comfortable and familiar, even if that comfort is unhealthy or unproductive. And this reaction can trigger fear and anxiety that feels almost overwhelming. And the amygdala will push you to avoid the change, often through powerful emotional responses like fear, guilt, or overwhelm. It's as if your primitive brain is telling you, don't do this, it's too dangerous, even if it's something very small, as responses like fear, guilt, or overwhelm. And how many of us feel that in a day? I did, for over and over again. And I realized this was why I was looping. The second thing I want to talk about is that the amygdala versus the frontal cortex, and how to rewire your response. Now, here's where it gets exciting. We have more evolved part of the brain called the frontal cortex, which is responsible for higher level thinking, logic, and decision making. And when we engage the frontal cortex, we move beyond the fear-driven responses and into rational thought. And this is the shift we need in healing, moving from the survival mode, driven by the amygdala, into a healing mode, regulated by the frontal cortex. And the amygdala will always react strongly when you begin making changes. But with practice, keyword practice, and commitment, you can train your brain to respond with clarity instead of reacting with fear. So again, awareness is super important here. This is where the naming your emotions, like actually write them down, and then really analyze that emotion and what's under that emotion, what triggered, because the thought always precedes the emotions that you feel. So you can get to the core of the issue, okay? So oftentimes what you have emotions around, like strong feelings about, is not that bothers you. It's a whole host of other things, okay? So I want you to talk about, let's say you get triggered by something that your mom says, right? I realize when my mom said something, she dismissed something that I said. And she simply said, do not call me anymore. And she does this where she will disown me, so to speak. And she used to do this as a way of punishment when I was younger. And I don't think she realizes what a negative effect that has on a child. But I realized it was all to do with not just her dismissing my comments, but it did trigger me in the deepest way. And it really spiraled out of control one time. And I didn't know why, and I kept naming the emotion, and I really realized underneath the surface of this common and simple thing, she didn't understand why I was so upset about it, but it brought up my wound and fear around abandonment. And I was overreacting to really numb the pain and to hide the pain. And when I acknowledged that, I had to set new boundaries in place so that when my mom goes to say something hurtful to me without knowing, I can better manage our situation so I don't offend her in any way, but also protect my heart from getting injured and not to have to take the bullet every time. And or sometimes I would have to speak my mind and be honest, and it has to be right when it happens, not hold the emotions and swallow it, because I will end up resenting it. And I feel like I'm one of those people that I carry somatic emotions inside, like fear, guilt, and anxiety. I just tend to swallow it and try to put the best foot forward. But I realize that that is not sometimes the best way to go about it, because you actually want to feel and metabolize, speak about it, and without feeling shame around it or minimizing your feelings as you being the drama queen, right? Because that's the worst thing that anybody, especially if you're female, to be labeled as somebody who's dramatic, right? And so I think I really avoided it because that's frowned upon in my family, to show any kind of emotions. We're just supposed to swallow, push through, do the next best thing. And I did that really, really well for most of my life until I got really sick and I started to really look at my tendencies. And of course, I came up with the Human OS and revelatory functional yoga medicine paradigm, just so I can understand how to teach this better in a way where it's cohesive and integrative. And so writing them down and processing these emotions helps you to re-engage the frontal cortex and bypass the more irrational amygdala-driven responses towards those that are more empowered decisions utilizing your frontal cortex. Number 3 is to decode, rewire, and rise process. It's a practical example that I want to give you to help you to understand how this all works in real life. Let's work through a general example of someone setting a boundary. And this is a process many of us can relate to, whether it's saying no to a family, work, or anything that doesn't serve us, but you don't know how to say no because we've been such a people pleaser for as long as we can remember. So step 1 is decode the fear, because it's one of two things. Primordial emotions that all humans feel is either fear or pain. And I just want you to say, fear coexists with love and peace. And we have to have the opposing emotions to feel one or the other, okay? Without the reference of the other, we can't feel it. So it's just as important to have love and fear, okay? Fear can be masked as hatred, anger, all the things, but it's in the continuum of fear. And then towards love is more the gratitude, the positive emotions, more towards tending towards the love end of the stick, if you will, okay? So imagine you're about to set a boundary with a family member. You feel the anxiety and fear bubbling up. Your amygdala is reacting. It feels like you're about to cause a disaster because you're so afraid of their response. Your brain is telling you that if you set this boundary, you'll be rejected, abandoned, or loved less. And I always feared this for myself as well. I never knew it until I wrote it down and started to name the emotions. The fear is so intense. It feels like a life or death situation, and you have anxiety attacks to prove it, even though it's not. The first step is to decode what's happening. You need to identify the fear. What am I really afraid of? Maybe it's the fear of disappointing someone you love or the fear of conflict. Once you recognize it, you're able to see that this fear is just your brain's survival response. It's not life-threatening. It's just your brain trying to keep you in the comfort zone, okay? So that's the decoding process. Step 2 is to rewire the response. Now comes the rewiring. The brain's wiring can be changed with the consistent practice, only with consistent practice. This is where you shift from emotional reaction to rational thought. And with fear named and decoded, you can engage your frontal cortex and remind yourself that setting a boundary doesn't mean rejection. It's a healthy step towards self-respect and clarity. You can use tools like deep breathing, mindfulness, and positive affirmations to help retrain your brain. And each time you set a boundary and push through that fear, you reinforce the new, healthier brain patterns. Step number 3, you then rise into your power. Finally, you rise. Once you've decoded and rewired your brain's response, you step into a version of yourself that is stronger, more confident, and in control. You realize that setting boundaries doesn't lead to disaster if it leads you to empowerment and self-respect. The fear still exists, but you've learned how to move through it. You're no longer controlled by the amygdala's fight or flight response. You've shifted into a space where you can honor your needs and move forward with clarity. Number 4 is the importance of commitment and coaching. Healing like this isn't an overnight process. It takes commitment, consistency, and support. This is why I've created the Human OS Reset and Decode Rewire programs to give you the tools, guidance, and accountability to move through this process over and over again, because until it becomes second nature, and as you grow and evolve, you're going to need to use this process over and over again. And in these programs, you'll learn how to decode your fears, rewire your responses, and rise into your fullest potential. You won't be doing this alone. I'm here to guide you, support you, coach you, and help you to break free from the emotional cycles that have kept you stuck, okay? The fear of change will always show up, no matter what, especially if you're changing for the better. The key is understanding it, being aware of it, naming it, and then choosing to move through it with the response that you want. This is being intentional, and this is the power of healing. This is the beginning of healing. You can change your brain, your response, as well as your life and health. If you're ready to break the cycle and step into your power, let's get started today. Book your session with me, Functional Yoga Medicine, Decode and Rewire session, to work with me independently, or you can sign up for Human OS Reset and Decode and Rewire programs. The links will all be below. Follow me for more on Instagram at Dr. Connie Cheung, Cheung, as well as to subscribe to this podcast, leave us a review, as well as my YouTube channel, Dr. Connie Cheung, where I share a lot more insights. There's so much more that this comes from, and this is my passion, and this is my life's purpose. And I thank you so much for this community and for being here and listening to me. I will see you guys all next week. Stay safe. Bye.
Thanks for tuning in to Human OS Mind Your Health Rewired. If something you heard today sparked a shift, share it with someone you love, or tag me at Dr. Connie Cheung so we can spread this mission together. To explore programs, trainings, or resources to support your healing, visit hossystems.com. And remember, you're not broken. You're brilliantly wired for healing. You just need the right operating system. Until